A rectangle has a width of x centimeters and its length is 4 centimeters longer than this. So my suggestion would be, first of all, to draw out a rectangle, have a shorter and a longer side. Well, if the width is x, that means that the length has to be x plus 4 because it's 4 longer than it. Okay, so there we go. Write an expression x for the area of the rectangle. Well, area equals length multiplied by width. That's how you get the area. So for example is, if I had like let's say a 4 by 8 rectangle, the area would be 4 multiplied by 8, which would be 32 centimeters squared. Okay, so we know something like that. So here's what we're going to do now. We're going to try out multiplying x, which is the x is going to be the width multiplied by the length. And when we multiply them out, we're going to get x squared plus 4x. That's what the area is equal to. Okay, now that's the answer for part 2. The answer for part 3 basically says the area of the rectangle is 21. So that means our x squared plus our 4x must be equal to 21. Part 4 wants us to solve this equation. To solve it, we bring the 21 over the other side, and we get x squared plus 4x minus 21 equals 0. We need to make a list of numbers that multiply to give minus 21, but will add to give us plus 4. So let's write out a list. We could have minus 1 and plus 21, or we could have minus 21 plus 1. We could have plus 3 and minus 7, or we could have minus 3 and plus 7. I'm going to use minus 3 and plus 7 because when you add them together, they give you plus 4. So that means x plus 7 and x minus 3. Now please remember, length cannot be negative. This means x has to be positive. Okay, so what we do next is we say x plus 7 equals 0. Move the 7 to the left and we get x equals minus 7. Next one is x minus 3 equals 0. Move it to the left and we get x equals 3. And we're done. Okay, so that's 5. 6. A man bought X articles at a price of X plus 3. So imagine, for example, is I bought 4 shirts, and the 4 shirts cost, each shirt cost €10 each. The total I paid is the number of items multiplied by the cost per item. So it'll be 4 multiplied by 10, which is €40. We take this example and what we say is, if we buy X amount, X objects, but each object costs X plus 3, we're multiplying the number of objects we bought by the price per object. So we multiply that out and we get x squared plus 3x, and that's the answer to part 1. Now part 2 says if we spend €28 altogether, this means our x squared plus 3x must be equal to 28. And then finally part 3, solve the equation. So part 3 is x squared plus 3x. We bring the 28 from the right side to the left side. Make it, once again, one of them's a plus and one of them's a minus. Make a list of numbers that multiply out to give you minus 28. Well, we have minus 1 plus 28, minus 28 plus 1. We could have 2 and minus 14, or we can have minus 2 and plus 14. We could have 4 and minus 7, or we can have minus 4 and plus 7. I think the answer we're looking for is minus 4 and plus 7. Okay, then we enter it in here. If we're going to get x plus 7 equals 0, move the 7 to the other side and we get minus 7. X can't be negative because how do you order minus 7 of an object? The answer is going to be x minus 4 equals 0, x equals 4. Now what does the question want from us? Find the value of x. X equals 4. It says value, not value, so only wants one value. Okay, so that's question 5 and question 6 done. Now we're on to question 10. Remember, area of objects, of four-sided objects, is length multiplied by width. Now, in the case of the square, it's x multiplied by x. which is going to be x squared. In the case of the rectangle, its length is 4 multiplied by x, which is 4x. So there's our answer for the first two. If the area of the square is added to the area of the rectangle, so if x squared is added to 4x, the answer is 12. There is an equation for part 3. Part 4 is solve the equation, so we bring the 12 to the other side and we're going to get x squared plus 4x, take away 12 equals 0. Once again, it's a minus 12, so it's a positive and a negative. Okay, so we're going to have to make a list of negative numbers for minus 12. So you can have a plus 1 minus 12, you can have a minus 1 plus 12, you can have a plus 2 minus 6, or you can have minus 2 plus 6. I'm happy with minus 2 plus 6 because when I add them together, I get plus 4. So I'm going to go for 6 and minus 2 here. Then we go in here and we get x plus 6 equals 0. That's no good. X is going to equal minus 6. Yeah, it can't be a minus number, so that's not going to work. Then we have x minus 2 equals 0, and then finally x equals 2. And we're done. All right, guys. So that is questions 5, 6, 10, and now we're on to 13. Find 3 consecutive natural numbers. Now, please, when you say the word natural numbers, okay? So, check, because I often forget, is 0 a natural number? 0 does not have a positive or negative value. However, 0 is considered a whole number, which in turn makes it an integer, but it's not a natural number. They have to be positive, okay? So natural numbers are positive whole numbers, okay? Now, I'll give you an example of 3 consecutive natural numbers would be 1, 2, and 3. Consecutive means to come one after the other after the other. I couldn't have 1, 3, and 5 because they're not directly after each other in the lists, okay? I could also have 3, 4, 5. I could have 9, 10, 11 are 3 consecutive numbers. Now, we could also do a little trick with x. We could use x, then add 1 onto x, x plus 1, and then add another one onto x. These 3 here are consecutive numbers. Okay? Now when you see the word product, it means when you multiply the first 2 by each other. So the product means multiply. So this is the first number, this is the second number, and this is the third number. The third number is the biggest because it has a 2 on it. The product of the first 2 numbers. So that means multiply the first number by the second number. X times x plus 1. That's the product of the first 2 numbers. Now, read this part. Is 2 greater? So it's 2 greater than 4 times the third number. So when I do 4 times the third number, which is 4 times the third number, 4 times the third number is 2 smaller than the product of the first 2. So I had to add an extra 2 onto the right to make this happen. Okay, so look what happens now. X by x, x squared, x by 1, 1x equals 4x plus 8 plus 2. That's 4x plus 10. Now keep those equal signs stacked if you can. Now we're going to bring everything over one side. We're going to have x squared plus 1x. The 4x moves over to minus 4x. And then the 10 moves to the left to become minus 10. And that in turn equals 0. Nextly, we're going to have x squared. 1x minus 4x is minus 3x. And that's minus 10 equals 0. Now, 2 numbers that multiply to give you minus 10. Well, you go for minus 1 and 10. You go for plus 1 minus 10. You could go for 2 and minus 5, or you could go for minus 2 and plus 5. I'm going to go for 2 and minus 5. So it's going to be x plus 2 and x minus 5 because they equal minus 3 in the middle. Okay, then we're going to get answers here. We're going to get x plus 2 equals 0, x equals minus 2. That's not allowed because it has to be a natural number. X minus 5 equals 0, and then our answer is x equals 5. So I think the 3 numbers I was talking about would be 5, 6, and 7. Let's try it out. The product of the first two, 5 times 6 is 30. 4 times the third number, 4 times 7 is 28. You can see 30 is 2 bigger than 4 times the third number. Hence, we know we have the right answer. Okay, so I've done 5, 6, 10, now I've done 13, and now on to 14. Find 3 consecutive even numbers such that the product of the first two is less than 5 times the third number. Now, it says even numbers. So I'll give you an example. You can't say 1, 2, 3 this time. That won't work. It had to be something like 2, 4, 6. You can't say 1, 3, 5 because they're odd numbers. Another example would be 10, 12, and 14. They're consecutive even numbers. Now, in this case, what we're going to try is the little trick. We're going to let x be the smallest even number, then add on 2. Every single time to make the next even number, you got to add on 2. X plus 2 would be this next even number, and then x plus 4 would be the third even number. Okay, so we've got our first, our second, and our third. Now let's read the language of the question here. Okay, product of the first two. So the product of the first two is multiplying x by x plus 2. No bother. Is 2 smaller? So this x and x plus 2 is going to be smaller than 5 times the third number. So 5 times the third number is larger than the first 2 multiplied by each other. So to balance this up, it's 2 smaller. So if I add on a 2, it will make it 2 bigger, then both of them will equal each other. So let's find out. X times x, x squared. X times 2 is 2x plus 2. You have 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 4 is 20. Now let's move everything over to one side. We're going to get x squared plus 2x. 5x moves from the right hand side to the left hand side to become negative 5x. Plus 2, take away 20. That's minus 18. So 2 take away 20 is minus 18. 2x take away 5x is minus 3x. And then we have x squared. So what two numbers multiply to give minus 18, but add to give minus 3? Minus 6 plus 3. 6 minus 3. 2 minus 9. Minus 9, minus 2 plus 9. Look guys, it's the minus 6 plus the 3. So it's going to be x plus 6, x minus 3 equals 0. Now do these have to be 3 consecutive even numbers? So 3 consecutive even numbers means it could have also been negative. It could have been minus 6, minus 4, and minus 2, because I think we might get a minus answer here actually. We're about to get x plus 6 equals 0, and x equals minus 6, and x minus 3 equals 0, x equals 3. Well look, x equals 3 is not an even number, so that's gone. So we're going to test out minus 6. So if minus 6 was my answer, that would mean that minus 6 is the smallest number. Minus 6 plus 2, minus 4 is the second smallest number, and minus 6 plus 4 is minus 2. That's the third smallest number. And we're going to do is we're going to test out the description of the question. Okay. 5 times the third number. I think we've gone wrong somewhere here, guys. Guys, stupid mistake by Mr. Kenny. It's actually minus 6 plus 3, so must be a long day at the office for me. So it's minus 6 plus 3, that makes plus 3x. So just give me a second with that. So it's going to be x minus 6 equals 0, x equals positive 6. So when I go back to the top here, what we're going to say is it's positive 6. So it's going to be 6, 8, and 10. Okay. So let's try this out. The product of the first two, 6 multiplied by 8 is 48. 5 times the third number, 5 times 10 is 50. 48 is 2 smaller than 50. That agrees with the description of the question. So we know we got it right.